Greetings, everyone. I'm Gretchen Olerhag of Lighten Up and Thrive, Joyful Living for Mind, Body, and Soul. I'd like to welcome you to this home study module that's called Finding Balance, How to Reclaim Your Time to Live a More Fulfilling Life. I also want to introduce my co-creator and business partner, Dr. Jerry Eddington. While I'll be guiding you through this module, I want you to know that Lighten Up and Thrive is very much of a joint venture. Jerry and I have similar yet very unique backgrounds, so our skill sets complement one another brilliantly. First and foremost, Jerry and I are mind, body, soul coaches, as well as lifetime learners that are passionate about teaching and helping others to experience powerful shifts in their lives. We co-created our Lighten Up and Thrive business so that we could reach many more people with our online and social media support and presence. We offer educational home study modules and programs so that we can share inspirational materials, transformational programs, and also become your catalyst for personal growth. But you can also check us out at www.lightenupandthrive.com and also on our Lighten Up and Thrive Facebook page. So just a little bit about me. Again, my name is Gretchen, and I'd like to just share with you that my passion is really to facilitate powerful transformational shifts at a core level for people. Transformations occur by discovering, reframing, and shifting limiting beliefs. Transforming limiting beliefs helps to unlock each individual's highest potential, which also helps to align you with your soul's truth and your divine purpose. This is the key factor in all of our trainings and our programs. Jerry also specializes in transforming limiting beliefs. Jerry's passion is helping others to connect to their inner wisdom, and she really does this on a soul level. I love how Jerry calls herself a soul success coach because she's brilliant at helping others to discover and uncover their obstacles, which frees them to achieve their personal and career potentials. So the following key topics that we want to cover are in part 1, what is work-life balance? We're going to define this concept and also what it means for you, and also some of the benefits of keeping your work and your life in balance. In part 2, we're going to discuss what the consequences of work-life imbalance and also the consequences of improving work-life balance. We're also going to share some really interesting research with you that you can use as you consider your own work-life imbalance and balance. Part 3, what are the influences of your work-life balance? We're going to discuss the specific factors, the factors that are negative and positive, internal and external, and that are really key to discovering work-life balance. And in the fourth part, what can you do to improve your work-life balance? You're going to look specifically at external and internal positive and negative influences of your work-life balance. So the only thing you need is just a willingness to make a commitment to yourself and also to take some action so that you can help these shifts happen. So on slide 6, we just posed the question of what is work-life balance? Do you remember playing on a seesaw when you were little and how shifting on your seat or maybe an extra push off from the ground would change the entire action of the seesaw? Well, one of the dynamics at play with the seesaw is this thing called balance. And it's interesting that balance is one of our earliest discernments and discoveries as young children. So to get started, let's bring some perspective to your own life. Now, I won't ask you to climb on a seesaw, but I do want to ask you to think about your life up to this point and the balance of years ahead of you. Now, none of us likes to really think about our mortality, And it might be a bit uncomfortable for some of us to think about doing a life review. So let's just do a simple visualization for a moment. So find a place where you're comfortable and where you can actually close your eyes and just engage that movie theater of your mind. It literally just means like you're looking at your life review as if you were watching your own movie. You're going to do a retrospective visualization. So it's sort of like looking in that rear view mirror. And use all of your senses. Make it rich and vivid in detail using your beautiful imagination. And then engage feeling and hearing and seeing as you look back on a retrospective view of your life. And as you do so, I'd like you to pause and ask yourself, what have you achieved in this lifetime? What were your relationships like? Did you feel like you made a difference in the world? How do you think you will be remembered? What do you think that you will have done that will give you a good feeling when you looked back on your retrospective life review? How have you best fulfilled your own unique potential? What will you have done that will give you a good feeling when you reflect back from the end of your life? Or maybe you might even ask yourself, how have you best fulfilled your own unique potential? So, pause the recording for a few moments and just reflect on these questions. If you were to look back over your life, how would you view yourself? Now again, this might be a bit uncomfortable for some of you to listen to, but it's really important at times to think about our lives from this perspective because we rarely do this. And the truth is that we're only here for a short time, and it really is helpful to learn how to focus on what truly matters. So thinking about our own life purpose and also what brings us fulfillment helps us to align what we are currently doing with what we want to be doing with the rest of our lives. Well, getting back to that seesaw, our work-life balance really is a lot like that seesaw. Each of our actions or activities in one area of our life, no matter how big or how small, causes a shift somewhere else. So let's introduce a definition of work-life balance that we will use for the remainder of this call. And you'll see on that slide number 8, what is work-life balance? Well, work-life balance is the dynamic relationship between achievement, fulfillment, and the factors that influence our choices and decisions in these two areas. So I'd like you to take out activity sheet number 1, finding the balance point. You'll be filling in different areas on this activity sheet throughout this module. So you might want to write down the definition of work-life balance at the bottom of this activity sheet. So again, work-life balance is the dynamic relationship between achievement, fulfillment, and the factors that influence our choices and decisions in these two areas. Achievement is primarily about doing, more the action steps such as getting things done and meeting goals and obligations, whereas fulfillment is more about being and more about the feeling state, such as feeling satisfied about your relationships and your contributions. So you might want to pause and reflect for a moment and literally just pause the recording so that you can consider a few things. What do you notice about this definition? And what does it cause you to think and reflect on? And what's important about the need to balance our doing with our being? Work-life balance looks different for everybody, so we're going to personalize what work-life balance means to you. So, looking at activity sheet number 1, please write the word achievement to the left of the person standing in the center of the circle on this activity sheet. And then write the word fulfillment to the right of the person standing at the center of this activity sheet. And then I'd like you to write down a word or draw a symbol or an icon representing what these two words mean to you. So draw the symbol or write the word in the person's hand on those applicable sides. Some of the words, just to give you a little bit of an example, might be for achievement. It might be a diploma or a star, or maybe a symbol for money or the word money. Whereas on the right side, it might be fulfillment, or maybe a symbol of a heart, or even a symbol for a gift. So how does this feel when you look at this? Is there a big difference between achievement and fulfillment? So take a moment and just pause and reflect on that. And now you're going to take the pulse of your current work-life balance. So looking at activity sheet number 1, notice that the balance board has a 0 in the middle and the number 10 at each end. So this person standing in the center is literally standing on a balance board. Ideally, balance between achievement and fulfillment is what is desired, but as we've discovered, balance is ever changing, just like that seesaw, and you have to make adjustments every now and then. So how you rate these today may well be different in a month, in a week. So let's see how things stand currently in your life right now. So I'd like you to draw a mark or write a number along the left-hand scale that represents where you currently are in your overall satisfaction with achievement. So the 10 would be that you feel the best you possibly can about the achievements in your life. So just mark it along that line or give it a numerical value. And now do the same thing on the fulfillment side of the drawing over on the right. Mark wherever that line is or give it a numerical value. And then I'd like you to pause and just ask yourself, what do you notice about the differences between achievement and fulfillment, and what does this mean to you? So just take a look at that. And let's talk about a metaphor for balance. As babies, when we first learn to stand, we fall down a lot so that we can discover the edges of our equilibrium and learn the consequences of the movements that we make. I love that expression of every action has a reaction. So, with time and experience, we build habits and strengths that help us maintain our balance without even having to think about it. And that's the whole point about work-life balance, is that it is a dynamic relationship. It's always changing and shifting. So each person must decide what achievement and fulfillment looks like in their own life. And again, this is a dynamic assessment as well. It can change from day to day, from week to week, month to month, year to year. So just pausing and looking at this is really helpful. And if we don't make work-life balance the priority, sometimes the negative influences that fill our lives urge us to say no to work-life balance and yes to work-life imbalance. We can easily fall into traps before we even notice that we have a significant amount of imbalance in our life. So all we have to do really is recognize that there really are consequences to this. So what are the consequences of work-life imbalance? And how would our lives be different or better if we made work-life balance more of a priority? So this is exactly what we're going to look at next in part 2. Work-life imbalance is a challenge for many, many people. And as a result, there's also been a lot of studies done on this. So I'm going to just share a little bit of data with you right now. So as you take out worksheet number 2, and we're going to be going back and forth to these worksheets, but right now I just want you to look at activity sheet number 2. And I'd like you to fill in the missing words to item number 1, just so that you have this and it kind of engages your mind a little better as you listen to some of the statistics here. A study by the career website vault.com revealed that 69% of respondents said that the amount of vacation time they receive is not sufficient. That's huge, 69%. And a study by the Families and Work Institute revealed that chronically overworked employees have an adverse effect on business outcomes. They are more likely to make mistakes, to resent their employers, and to resent coworkers for not working as hard as they do. And I'm sure all of us can relate to that in some manner or form. This next one is huge. Multitasking is a key contributor to employees feeling overwhelmed. How many of us have gotten into that trap of multitasking, thinking that that's going to actually alleviate some of the overwhelming challenges that they have in work-life balance? And then according to the Corporate Executive Board, only 30% of employees feel they have a good work-life balance. And a final statistic that I want to share is that a recent study among 50,000 global workers indicated that work-life balance ranks second in importance after compensation. Again, that's huge. Out of 50,000 global workers, work-life balance ranks second in importance after compensation. The implications of this research for each of us, our families, and also the companies that we work for are monumental. So take a few moments, and I'd like you just to write down what you think, what some of the implications of the research are. Okay, now let's talk about this research as it relates to your views of work-life imbalance. I'd like you to refer to question number 3 on your activity sheet. What do you think about the research, what it's saying, and about the consequences of work-life imbalance? And also then, how does it relate to your own life? So write that down. What are the consequences of work-life imbalance? And when I'm talking about consequences, I'm referring to more of the negative results that you're seeing in your life on that. So take a moment and just pause to complete that. So we just covered how work-life imbalance has clear consequences, especially negative ones. In fact, some of them are actually really serious, perhaps even life-threatening, really affecting your health, for an example. So now let's look at the consequences of work-life balance. What happens in our lives when we are in balance? So we're still on that activity sheet number 2. But I'd like you to identify what you think are the consequences of work-life balance. So think about the consequences in positive terms. How do you see yourself, your family, or your company? And then take a moment and write that down in the box number 4. So write down what the consequences of work-life balance, and just record your thoughts and pause the recording for a moment to do that. So let's recap for a moment and just look at the key points. Work-life balance takes effort. It requires paying more attention to our lives than we may be used to, and also making conscious choices to change. It may feel uncomfortable, awkward, or unnatural at first to notice, to increase our awareness, and also to make a different choice towards balance. But it does get easier over time. Interestingly, some people may experience shame or even guilt if they're not successful at improving their work-life balance, and sometimes both. So the message here is be gracious with yourself and remember this is a process. So to really understand work-life balance, we need to look beyond what we want to achieve and how we want to be fulfilled, and to look at the factors that influence our work-life balance. The power to improve our work-life balance lies in everyone's ability to recognize what is minimizing your work-life balance, and then what can you do to maximize it. So the third part that we're entering into now is what influences my work-life balance. I love that slide number 13, that picture. It's such a good visual just to really think about what actually is influencing your work-life balance, but also what affects your ability to find balance. If work-life balance was easy, we'd all have it. But it's, again, a dynamic, ever-changing process that can seem more elusive than attainable. And there are many things in life that create obstacles between you and work-life balance. So we've looked at some of the consequences in part 2, some of the consequences from the work-life balance and imbalance. So in this section, we're really just going to dig deeper and identify some of the internal and external factors that can influence your ability to improve your work-life balance. So here's a little activity that I would just like you to do, and that simply is to just stand up for a moment. And as you stand up, I want you to lift one leg and find balance in the other leg, and I want you to do that for about 30 seconds. A few more seconds, try and find that balance. Okay, you can put that other leg down now, or you can even sit back for a moment. And I just want you to ask yourself what things, both internally and externally, negatively influenced your ability to maintain your balance on that one leg. So think about that for a moment. What were some of the internal influences that you can relate to about your thoughts or your feelings? Maybe you had thoughts about, I can't do this, or I can't do this any longer, or my leg isn't strong enough for this, or my balance is terrible, whatever that was. Those might have been some of the internal influences. And then some of the external influences. Those are some of the things that relate to your external world, such as maybe you were standing on an uneven surface, or someone or something was bumping into you. So let's switch this up a bit. So now I'd like you to try and balance on the other leg. So stand up, and you're going to do this for about 30 seconds. I want you to, standing on the other leg, I want you to do that now for about 30 seconds, and I want you to pay attention to the internal and the external influences that you're noticing about your ability to maintain your balance. So do that now. Almost there. Keep doing that. Notice what's going on in your thoughts, what your body's doing. Okay, you can stop. You can put your leg down and you can sit back down if you want to. So let's think about some of those internal and external influences. Maybe the internal influences the second time we're around were, I can do this. Or you could imagine yourself as a tree with deep roots that gave you an extra feeling of stability. Maybe it was easier for you the second time around because you had a little bit more of an understanding of what to expect. And maybe the external influences the second time around were that you gave yourself permission to lean on something or someone. Or maybe you activated some of your skills from having done yoga in the past to help you keep your balance. So we're going to be exploring the positive and negative influences on your ability to balance. So let's apply all of this to your work-life balance. So we're going to go back to your activity sheet 1 again. So if you notice, there are 4 quadrants. There's 4 little boxes in each corner of this sheet. You're going to write something inside of each one of these 4 boxes. In your upper left, I'd like you to write down positive external influences. So upper left, write down positive external influences. And in your upper right, I'd like you to write down negative external influences. And then in your lower left, please write down positive internal influences. And in the lower right, write down negative internal influences. So again, upper left is positive external influences. Your upper right is negative external influences. Your lower left is positive internal influences. And in the lower right are negative internal influences. So let's look at the influences for you, for your work-life balance. Now, everyone has various factors that influence their work-life balance, and you're going to look at what these factors are for you personally, and also your ability to create work-life balance. So you're going to be placing these within each of these 4 quadrants. So I want to be sure to point out that the same influences can be positive in one person's life and negative in another person's life. So one person might have a very flexible work schedule, for example, where their work times are different each week. So to them, a flexible work schedule may be a really positive influence because it gives them free time during the day to run errands and also maybe to have lunch with friends or to get in doctor's appointments. And for someone else, a flexible work schedule may be a negative influence because they have difficulty planning from week to week, or maybe they have childcare issues that work better with a really regimented or more consistent schedule. It's your turn to see which positive and negative influences are affecting your work-life balance. So I'd like you to refer to activity sheet number 1. And again, your attention to the top half of the activity sheet where they're labeled positive external influences and the negative external influences. I'd also like you to look at the top of the quadrants, and you'll see another box in there that has some possible categories that you might want to include on your worksheet and put them in the appropriate quadrants. Again, those would be the positive external influences and the negative external influences. I'd like you to think for a moment about family. Just reflect on family. And does that fall into more of the positive or more of the negative external influence, and it could be for both. Look at friendships now. Does that lean more towards the positive or the negative external influences? Think about home. Maybe money and finances. And again, if this doesn't apply to you, that's fine. But if it does, just put that in the appropriate quadrant. Think about career. Maybe obligations. Maybe also resources. Maybe not enough resources. Maybe your employer or employees. Maybe it could be your health or stakeholders, whatever that is. So just put those in the appropriate quadrants in your activity sheet. And now, I'd like you to look at your activity sheet and notice where the positive internal influences are in that bottom left and the negative internal influences in the bottom right. And just as you did with the external influences, in those general categories, I want you to place those categories in the appropriate quadrant. And again, if it doesn't apply, just simply disregard it. And if the category is too broad, you can think of a more specific example. So think about habits, positive or negative internal, emotions. That certainly could fall into both for a lot of people. You might think about your values, knowledge, maybe even your beliefs. And along with beliefs are perspectives, passion, experience, maybe the past, or maybe your mindset or self-awareness. It could even be something like cooking. So don't think too hard. Just go spontaneously. Go with your gut feelings. And just remember, some of these things can be both positive and negative. And you certainly can pause the recording at this point and just put down what you think or get some of your own examples in there. So let's look at some of the key points here and just review them for a moment. Remember that external influences are the factors in a person's environment that may be beyond your immediate control. But still, these external influences can affect work-life balance in either a positive or a negative way. Possible examples can be for the negative, distracting ones. Maybe there's a mean or demanding boss, or a sudden expense that causes you to have to work more hours. Or some of the positive, supportive ones might be that you have easier access to business opportunities or resources, a supportive family, or maybe no mortgage payment. Wouldn't that be nice? Some of the internal influences are the factors that are inside the person and generally, but not always, within the control of the person. And many of these internal influences relate to one's mindset. So possible examples might be for negative and distracting ones that maybe they're limiting beliefs, that a sort of that victim mentality, or maybe poor health habits, or maybe there's just a general lack of awareness. And some of the positive, more supportive ones might be a leadership mindset, or a strong education or experience. Maybe you have a strong belief in yourself, or you're courageous, or you like challenges, you find them invigorating. So now that we've looked at some of the benefits of improving work-life balance and the factors that support us or distract us from doing so, it's time to put this knowledge into action. So, once you become aware of the negative influences that influence your work-life balance, you're one step closer to doing something about these. So just simply by becoming aware of the positive influences, you can discover how resourceful you are, for example. So let's take out your activity sheet number 3. This is called accentuating the positive. You're also going to be referring back to activity sheet number 1. And going back to number 1, I'd like you to identify one negative influence, either internal or external, that is a hindrance to having a better work-life balance, and that one that you would like to minimize or maybe even eliminate. So just write that in the space provided on activity sheet number 3. So that is one negative factor that you want to minimize or eliminate. So write that on that left upper side. Maybe you might want to select one influence that is the easiest to shift, or one maybe that has the greatest impact on your life right now. A good example might be stopping smoking, or maybe a negative factor that you want to minimize or eliminate is lack of exercise. So identify one positive influence now, either internal or external, from the activity sheet number 1 that supports a better work-life balance. And I want you to write that on the space provided in activity sheet number 3, and that's in that bottom left side. So you're identifying first the one negative factor that you want to minimize or eliminate in the upper left, and then one positive factor that you want to maximize or enhance in the bottom left. An example of that maybe is your creativity, and you want to maximize or enhance that creativity. So by narrowing your focus and selecting just 2 influences to work on, you won't overwhelm yourself, and this makes this process really easy, but more importantly, really powerful. So you can put more effort into making only these changes, and then when you're ready, you can pick 2 more influences to work on, one negative and one positive, however far down the future that you want to. So let's keep this simple so you're not overwhelmed. So now you're going to write down one action that you're willing to take that's going to minimize that negative influence that you wrote in that upper left box. So for smoking cigarettes, let's say that an action step that you want to take is that maybe you're going to call your doctor and see if you can get a nicotine patch, or maybe you're going to see a hypnotherapist. So that's an action step. And you're going to write down one action step that you're willing to maximize the positive influence, and you're going to be putting that, what action step for a positive influence, in that bottom right. And maybe that action step to my creativity, maybe the action step is something like enrolling in an oil painting class at a community college. Or maybe you set aside an hour every day to write, or maybe to dance. Whatever that is for you, that's going to maximize that positive influence in your life. Ask yourself what you need to do, or what needs to happen in order for you to make these type of commitments and changes for yourself. So pause the recording for a moment to do that. One of the things that I really enjoy about this exercise is that it makes this process so tangible. You're able to immediately apply this process into any real life situation. And this is really about making small changes one at a time. You increase your awareness, and you also increase your intentionality about where you want to make shifts in your life. So let's just recap and review those key points for a moment. Remember that work-life balance just represents your relationship to the 4 aspects of your life, and those 4 aspects are achievement, fulfillment, external influences, and also the internal influences. And you can create a better balance through identifying what achievement and fulfillment look like for you and what you need to do to create a satisfying balance for yourself. So consider using this tool often, and remember it only takes small changes to increase your work-life balance. Just start somewhere. Just for some final thoughts, I want to help you solidify your learning that has taken place in today's training in this module. So just to accomplish this, I'd like you to think of a short phrase or maybe a word just to think of so that you can capture the essence of what you've learned today. And I'll just give you a few examples. One of them might be just a reminder to be really honest with yourself. Take a really good look at your life and how is it flowing for you, or how is it not flowing for you. Another might be to remind yourself just to pick on one thing, one area in your life that you want to create a shift in so that it becomes easier for you to embrace and to incorporate into your patterns and your habits. Make this process more of a conscious process. You can actively work on increasing your awareness when you make this process conscious, whether it's internal or external awareness that you're focusing on. And one last handout that I'd like you to look at is the one on balancing choices. You see that there's a number of things that are listed in the different quadrants. So just take a look at that and remember you can do this process as often as you want. And the questions that you just ask yourselves would be, what a less than desirable outcome in your life, relationships, or career did you encounter this week? That might be one thing to tackle. And then notice, what was your response? What action did you take to minimize or eliminate the situation? Or some of the other questions might be, what action did you take to maximize or enhance the situation? And then also, what did you learn from becoming more aware of your levels of achievement and fulfillment? What did you learn by noticing the influences that either distract or support you? And also then, how will you use this learning to address your ongoing work-life balance? That's the most important thing that we'd like you to take away from this. So keep that in mind. And Jerry and I would like to thank you for participating in this home study module. And we really do look forward to sharing the other modules that are associated with this grouping of finding balance. And the other ones are Happy Trails, Focus on Authenticity, and Emotional Smarts. We'd love for you to check out our website, which is www.lightenupandthrive.com, and check out our transformational 28-day soul coaching programs. Dr. Jerry has Let Your Soul Shine, and I offer Letting Go into the Flow. We also offer a number of other programs on our website, so thanks again for checking us out at www.lightenupandthrive.com, and we look forward to you enjoying the other modules associated with this Finding Balance series. Thanks again, and until next time.